The title of this podcast is They're My Best Pitch and Detach from Outcome. Man, what does that mean? Or where is this coming from? Well, this is inspired by a pitcher named Greg Maddux. He was played for the Atlanta Braves most of his career, and he was unbelievable. He didn't have the fastest pitches, but what he had was location, location, and location. While some pitchers would take almost 2 hours to pitch a game, Greg Maddux would do it in under 90 minutes. He was unbelievable. And one of my college classmates turned me on to Greg Maddux. He was a walk-on pitcher at ASU. Shout out to Jamie Porras, great friend, got me through a lot of engineering classes. So big shout out to him. And he would talk about Greg Maddux and how good he was. He's like, he would bring me over to his house. His mom would make the best Mexican food. And he would say, watch this guy. And I had, I wasn't a baseball fan like a lot of my friends were, but he was. And he helped me see the game through Greg Maddux's, through the artistry and mastery of Greg Maddux. And he would leave batters being baffled because he didn't have the fastest stuff, but it was just great pitches. So I listened to an interview with Greg Maddux and one of the best hitters of all time, Tony Gwynn. And Greg Maddux was saying that the way that he threw a pitch was just an approach in which it was going to be his best pitch. He worked on his craft. And in doing so, he said that whatever the batter did, once I let go of that ball, it was all out of my hands. And so if there was a home run, it was a home run. If he struck him out, he struck him out. But he was not attached to the outcome. Now, where am I going with this? 5 years ago, I had an experience with a cousin that I grew up with. We were so close as kids that we told each other that when we have children, that our children will not think of us as first cousins, but rather as brothers, which mean that we would be uncles to each other's children. That's how close we were, and we meant it. And when we became adults and he had kids, he introduced me to them the first time, and they always grew up calling me Uncle Keith. It was a special relationship. We were like twins. We thought very much alike. We had the same positions and dislikes. His 1.0 was like my 1.0. Anytime you saw an occasional 2.0 from us, it was exactly the same. So we were very close. And his mom considered me, by all accounts, her favorite nephew. And I was a very quiet kid, and I was a rule follower. And so, and their mom looked at, them. It was three brothers, and they were a couple of years apart. And she looked at them like they were always in trouble, and they were lazy. Whereas there was Keith, always willing to help, the good kid, super kind and thoughtful and respectful of adults. And so, whenever something would happen, they would always get blamed for it. And they were like, "You don't know Keith," but typically they would have done something wrong, and it wasn't me. But in one case, we were playing football in the house, which we were warned not to do, and we knew better. And I was going out for a pass in the living room, and I hit the table. I made the catch, but I hit the table, and I knocked over a vase, and it broke. And so they came up and threatened me and said, "You better tell, our mom," and her name was Alla. "You better tell our mom that you broke that vase." So her mom came in. She came in, and it wouldn't take long before she noticed that something was wrong and the vase was broken. So she asked who broke it, and there was going to be some consequences. And as I was going to stand up and go say to her, I said, "On Alex," she said, "No, Keith, don't you take the blame for these bad boys. I know they broke it, and they probably wanted you to take the blame for it." And so it was just interesting. But we grew up with this amazing relationship. Fast forward 5 years ago, and his mom has aged and her health is failing, and she's living with him. And the one difference about Mark and myself is we kept our emotions inside. I just wouldn't talk about mine. But Mark, he would laugh and joke through anything that was tough or whatever for him. He would minimize it through laughter. So it was hard to know when he was serious about something. And when his mom came to live with him and her health started to deteriorate, she moved in with him, and she would call me. Mark would call me, and he would joke about it. About, man, I can't believe this. Most recently, she's in bed, and I can't clean her and stuff like this. So I called Chris over, his older brother, and she did it, but he's laughing the whole time. And so I don't know how serious he is about it. And then he goes on to say, "You should come out here and help me." And I didn't know that that was a serious request. I thought he was joking again. So I didn't go out. About a month later, my mom called, and she called to let me know that his mom had passed. He didn't call me. And I was devastated. I immediately tried to call him, but he didn't take the phone call. I left a voicemail message, and I followed up with a text message. And in the text message, I told Mark how sorry I was that I didn't know he was serious. I didn't know how gravely ill that she was, and I'm so sorry. And can I come out? I missed the funeral and things like this. He returned my phone call after a day or two, and in the phone call, he expressed disappointment, frustration, and anger toward me for not coming out. He felt let down, and he reminded me that I was his mom's favorite nephew, and that I my behavior was very disappointing. He was upset with me. I tried to apologize. He wasn't really hearing it, and for the next 5 years, we didn't speak. I made several attempts to get in touch with him through calling. Whenever I was in town in Memphis, I would, send a text message, "Can I stop by?" And it was just not welcomed. And so I reached out to his wife over the years and asked her whether or not what's going on with Mark? Can I talk to him? And she said, "Keith, he just needs time." Well, so I went to a community garden outing event at Mayo Clinic on Saturday, and I came home, and just as I was about to get a bite to eat, there was a text message, and it was from Mark. And all this time in which I apologized to him, I continued to keep an open heart. There was some sadness that I was able to observe my heart feeling that our relationship was was not what it used to be, and that it may have come to an end. I was aware of how sad my heart was. Again, I'm the consciousness being aware. I'm not my heart, but I'm aware of what the heart feels. I'm not my mind, but I'm aware of what the personal mind does. And in doing so, I'm able to be objective and to really appreciate what it is to be a human being. This human condition of the heart having ups and downs, or the mind being bothered when it doesn't get what it wants, and the mind being satisfied when it does get what it wants. But by being the observer, I'm able to be appreciative and grateful, and in the present moment, whether my heart is opened or whether it's closed, because I'm just aware of it. And I'm able to also be able to be objective and aware with my mind, how my mind behaves when it gets what it wants, and also when its expectations are not met. And so in this case of being aware that Mark was what has cut off communication and contact with me, I was aware of that, and I was able to be peaceful around it and to let it go and accept that this was his choice. As Greg Maddox said, I was able to throw my best pitch, which was apologizing, keeping an open heart, continuing to be available if he changed his mind, and then accepting whatever the outcome was. So, and this was what the outcome was up until this point. So again, back to the text message I got, I saw a text message that just said Keith with 3 exclamation points. And I noticed, my awareness noticed, my heart opened, and it was beautiful. And I wrote him back and said, "Hey, it's so great to hear from you. I miss you." He went on to express that he was in town with his son, who is a sophomore in high school. And if he stays on the trajectory that he is on now, he will likely play Division I college basketball. He is that good. And Mark told me that they had a couple games and invited me to come down. And it was a drive, but it was so worth it. And I drove down there to see him. And when I got there, he was coaching the team. And I sat next to his wife, and we had a lovely time reconnecting and laughing. It was like we'd been talking, for every holiday and every occasion and milestone in their family's lives and in my life. And after the game, Mark came over and he was his jovial, joking self. And he laughed and he talked about everything. He was happy to see me. It was a big hug. But there was, and the way that men typically hug each other, where you are, happy to see each other, but there's still a wall there. And I was aware of this wall like I hadn't been before. But in what it was there was no vulnerability, space for vulnerability in our relationship, and there hadn't been. And this was something that I had cultivated over many years of being in ToBeRe, as well as working on myself with the practice. That vulnerability was a dimension that I had come to love, appreciate, and value very much. And so Mark introduced me to one of the other coach, which is, and we just kept moving. We were going to go down this road. And the old me, Keith 1.0, would have been satisfied with him laughing, introducing me to someone that all was forgiven and that we were fine. But that wasn't enough. So I stopped Mark and pulled him to the side and said, "Hey, man, I just want to apologize to you for not being there for you when your mom passed away." He's like, "Oh, Keith, man, don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about any of that, man. I'm just happy to see you." And again, that would have been the second opportunity if I'd ever made an attempt to apologize as Keith 1.0. That would have been the second opportunity to let it go and say that we're all good. But I didn't. I stopped him again. I looked him in the eyes and I said, "Listen, I am really sorry. I let you down." And my heart has been bothered by that ever since. And I'm so sorry. He stopped me and said, "No, Keith, it wasn't you. It was me. I let you down." And I was so moved by this. And when his wife came down, he reiterated in front of his wife of how he had let me down. And she, he told me in front of her that, his wife's name is Latasha. He said, "Latasha told me that back then I wasn't in my right state. I was blaming everyone." And I think it's because I never expressed my emotions like that. I never allowed myself to feel that. And I just want to say, I'm sorry, Yuki. I'm so sorry. And thank you for all your efforts over the years of trying to reconnect with me and just staying open to us. And I feel like we're right back on track. And we walked out, hugging each other and thanking each other, all these years, later. And as we were parting ways, he thanked me again. We told each other we love each other. And he asked me would I come out the next day, which I hadn't had any intention of doing because I had other plans. But how could you say no to that invitation? So I came out the next day and it was just as beautiful, just as lovely. And he sent me just a great text message, and it was short and sweet. And I'm going to read to you what my cousin Mark wrote me, which was absolutely beautiful. And what he wrote me was, he said, it was short, but it said everything, which I'm super grateful for. And he said, "Man, so glad to see you. It's really like we haven't missed a beat. My family was ecstatic. No need to apologize to me. I need to apologize for you." In which I went on to say, "Mark, I can't begin to tell you how much it meant to me to see you tonight. It meant the world. I felt like I let you down. Thank you for reaching out today. Like you said, we didn't miss a beat. Your wife is the best. Her kindness is unmatched. Your son is incredible, and it was great talking to the college graduate, his daughter, who's in Atlanta. Thank you. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow." And then he wrote me back and told me what time the game was and went on to say that, "Hey, thank you so much for being there for me all these years. And I love you." And I just want to say that without the practice and ToBeRe, this would have happened. I would have just brushed this under the rug. And if we reconnected, great. And if we wouldn't, then Mark was wrong for the way that he didn't give me a second chance. And it'd have been all those narratives and stories, which all would have been nothing but something that was so far from the truth that it would have really adversely impacted my relationship with my family. And I would remain disconnected from my true self, which is to live with an open heart and to be loving and kind. And I'm just super grateful. So again, The title of this podcast, as I mentioned, and I think that this example really bears it out. You know, throw your best pitch and let go of the outcome. And in this case, I threw my best pitch by apologizing to my cousin and letting it go. And this is what worked out. But if it didn't, that would have been okay too.